So once you have picked your project, the next step is actually start to put the idea down on paper. So we're going to be looking at how to start the coursework off. Obviously, if you start off strong, then the rest of it is going to continue in that theme. Okay. So the most important thing for this is the document you are going to create over time. Now, this is going to be ultimately quite a big document. It ends up being between 80 to 120 pages, depending on the coursework. Now, not all of that is going to be written. There's going to be a lot of diagrams in there. There's going to be lots of code examples and things like that. So, but it is going to be still quite a weighty tome. So you will need a new Word document for this. I would strongly suggest you do this through maybe OneDrive or SharePoint, something like that, just so you've got this online version of it. You can still edit it inside the app, but having it uploaded to a cloud-based system means that you can edit it wherever you want to, and you're not going to have this situation where you're going to have lots of different versions of it. Okay. Add a title page just because it will always look professional with your name on it and ultimately your candidate number. We will add a contents page to it. Now, if you don't know how to add contents pages to Word documents, I will show you that in a lesson, or you can just Google it. It's a dead simple skill. But if you've never done it before, obviously it's something you would have to learn. And then you are going to have headings for each of the course sections. Again, this helps because A, we can find it really quickly, and B, it will automatically update that contents page. So, for example, if I'm marking your work and I want to go straight to your design section, I can click on the link, get straight there, rather than have to wade through loads of stuff. And it also helps you as well, because you can do the exact same. If you need to make a change to your design, you get the idea. So when you create the structure for analysis, this is what it's going to look like. So I'm just going to go over the main sections. You're going to have your main heading of analysis, and they're going to have lots of different subheadings. The first one is the project overview. This isn't assessed in a way that I'm going to give you marks for it, but it's actually really important for us to kind of gauge whether this coursework has the required scope. So i.e. it's going to give you access to all the marks. And it's also not too big because you don't want something that you won't be able to finish in time. The next section is really important, which is the existing app research. And this is historically done quite poorly, certainly the first time around, because a lot of people, they'll Google the first thing that comes to mind and just write, here's an app, 2 sentences, done. That's not what we're looking for. And I'll go into detail what I'm looking for and how you maximize the marks in that section in another video. You may wish to do some user research. Now, this is completely optional. In fact, you don't need to do it, and you can get full marks and without even thinking about it. The only reason you may wish to do this is if you've got a very user-centric system and you want to kind of gather their thoughts about it before you actually go ahead and actually do it. So this is really for something where it's maybe something new, or it's something that isn't really that much out there for it. And you're not 100% sure what people would want from it. If you've got a very specific end user, so you're building a system for someone else, for example, maybe like a small business, maybe your parents got a business, maybe you have your own business, then you may want to canvass user opinion. Stakeholders is next. You must have a user group for it, so you need to figure out who will use this application. Now, technically, you can have yourself as a stakeholder. Those projects are not great because it's very hard to kind of justify things when you are the person you're building it for, because then why make it because I want to? It's not a great justification, is it? So having a very specific demographic that you're going to be building the system for really makes a key difference. What features? Now, most of the work is going to be on the features, and this section must be well researched and well thought through. If you don't think about what features you have in the system and what they are specifically, how they're going to work, what algorithms they might need, then what happens is you're essentially going to kick that can down the road, and it might be a case that can turns into something you can't solve, or you haven't got the skills to solve, or it's going to take you too long to solve. So a lack of research in analysis really hurts you as you come towards development, and ultimately I would say takes longer to rectify if you don't do it now. Okay, so the feature research, how you can do these features, and your justifications of why they are important are really key. The section on computation methods, this is something you must put in there because for some reason the exam board are really keen on it. You need to look at all the key computational methods from the spec, and they basically say, are you going to be using them or not? It's supposed to, but in theory, kind of link in with the features. So here's a feature, and maybe I'm using backtracking for that feature in order to kind of solve it. Or maybe it's a visualization kind of feature, and it's supposed to be more linked towards those features. But historically, from feedback from the moderators, they kind of want a section where you go through every single method, saying, I'm not going to use this, I am going to use this one. Don't know why, it's just OCR being a bit annoying. I think there's a bit of a disconnect between what OCR wants and what the moderators are looking for. So that might be a training issue, I don't know. But we put it in just in case. Requirements. This is dead simple. You just need to tell me the hardware and software. Most of your requirements are the features of the system. Okay, so that would all have been very well justified and discussed. You don't need to do it again. So when we mark for requirements, we are looking at your features. So it's kind of like a double marking thing. And the hardware and software, those ones need to be there. You need to say what hardware and software you're going to need. But the justifications are going to be quite loose depending on the system. If you've got any custom hardware, for example, then you must put this in detail. If you've got any very specific software you require, again, that needs to go into detail. But if you're just using a normal PC, then you don't need to justify it too much over that. It needs to run on a normal PC. Your application won't be perfect, and there's going to be things you won't be able to implement. So if you're looking at existing apps, these are going to be written by professionals in the most part, and they're going to be written by people who've got a lot of time in their hands and people who are working in teams. You are not going to be replicating that. There's no way. I mean, I know a lot of you are incredibly talented software engineers. You are not a team of software engineers, okay? You don't have years and years and years to build an app. So there's a limit to what you can do. So your limitations are going to be, well, what are you not able to do? What aren't you able to put into this? What's the limitations of this app? What won't be there that could be there that would actually be really, really useful? So you need to give me 3 kind of core limitations of things that you could put in the app, which would make it better, but you're not going to, and your reasons why that's not going in. So think about it this way. Let's say your app could have 10 features. Now, some of those features are core features that must be there, otherwise the app's not going to work. But there might be a few that would be really good, interesting, useful features that you could implement, but not part of that core package, okay? Without them, it will still work. It just won't be as good. That's kind of where your limitations lie. Then find success criteria. Success criteria is basically, well, if I made a perfect solution, what would it look like? What would success look like? And you need to define that really clearly. And that's going to be broken down into what the core success feature is going to look like, or what would be a success feature, how would it kind of be not implemented, how it would look, for example, the usability of it. So what would be a usable system? What will you be looking for when you test this? What are you going to be looking for when you evaluate it? And so on and so forth. This part is super important because if I'm going to test a system, well, I need to know what I'm testing for. Okay? Well, I'm testing for success, aren't I? So if I said, I'm going to implement a Boolean algebra calculator which can handle 5 variables, well, my success criteria would be it needs to be able to handle 5 variables. Then I'll be testing for that in my testing. And also when I evaluate it, I'll evaluate, well, did it work for 5 variables or did it only work for 4? So there's kind of a trail between analysis to testing to evaluation. And in between that, obviously, we're going to have the design for it and we're going to have the coding for it. So success criteria really does feed through the entire coursework ultimately. And the success of your evaluation, which is worth 20 marks effectively, alongside the testing that goes with it, is directly linked to success criteria. So poor or limited success criteria will result in poor and limited evaluation. So although you might only lose a few marks in analysis, maybe you like drop down a grey boundary in analysis, it would heavily influence your evaluation. So the first steps, how do you get started? Once you've set up this document and got those sections, I want you to now create me a paragraph. Okay, this is a summary paragraph of what you are thinking to implement. Now, you have not made any design choices yet. You may not even have chosen what language you're going to be writing this in, or if you're going to be doing it as a web app, or it's going to be a mobile app, or is it going to be a desktop app, or anything like that. You don't have to. Okay, what this is just a kind of overview of roughly what you are planning to do, what your app is going to have. So what problems is it trying to solve? Where does it kind of fit in? What niche is it? Are there any key definitions that you're going to be using that we may not be familiar with? I'll give you an example of that. So if you're doing stock markets, for example, not everybody's a day trader, so you might need to explain some of the terminology that you'll be using throughout the coursework. This ultimately is there for two purposes. One is to make sure that you know what these are, and the moderator and myself will know what these are, because I am not an expert in everything. I know sometimes I pretend I am, but I'm not. And also, for the overview, is this going to work? Have we got enough detail to kind of forward predict to say, well, would this make a good course? Is it complex enough? Does it have a GUI? Does it have scope for validation? Is it going to be implemented in something that will carry the marks? Is it something you can do? Is it something that you've got the technical skills and the ability to research and also to implement in the future? So these initial features are not your final features by any stretch of imagination. You might add more, you might take some out, you might swap them around. That's absolutely okay. It's absolutely normal. You are not committing to anything at this stage. It's just essentially getting your ideas down on paper. Okay, that way we can share it with myself, so I know what is coming up on it, what you are planning to do, and whether I feel it's going to make a good project, and also whether you think you are able to do it, and also gives you that springboard into the next section, which is the research and the analysis of what those core features are. Do not go into detail on this section. Please don't spend like 5 or 6 pages writing loads of stuff down, because it's not required. Genuinely, 1 page is ample. I've seen some that are half a page and they are perfectly acceptable. It's whatever you need to get your idea down on paper, so I know and you know exactly what you're going to be developing. Okay,